I've been doing this for a while, this whole YouTube philosophy, trying to uncover some truths about the world thing, and one of the most unfortunate ones that I've learned in all of my years on this earth is that Tarantino makes good movies. And maybe even more unfortunate is that Pulp Fiction may be one of the best movies ever made. But maybe not in the way you think. We can start to see why in its first moments, as it opens with this definition. Pulp. 1. A soft, moist, shapeless mass of matter. 2. A magazine or book containing lurid subject matter and being characteristically printed on rough, unfinished paper. It's an ironic title to match the movie's purposeful and plentiful contradictions. A meaningful film about meaningless people. Pointless dialogue that goes on to serve a point in characters who are formless, wet mass yet to be shaped, but able to be nonetheless, if the mass can first recognize its lack of shape so far. It's deeply steeped in a sort of counterculture, using the aesthetics of cool to show exactly why being so is a stupid endeavor, stated bluntly like a shot to the head, yet slipping under the radar of many, only available to those in the know. Commenting on a society holding contrasting ideals to their own detriment, it carries forward a remnant of the now commodified and marketized spirit of authenticity. But that's enough yakking about pointless bullshit. Let's actually get into it. We'll start with one of the most iconic series of lines in the history of cinema, the whole Royale with cheese exchange. Just getting back from 3 years in Amsterdam, gangster Vincent Vega explains the differences between ordering at a McDonald's there versus in America to similarly employed Jules Winnfield. It's somehow jokey, somehow serious conversation about, well, nothing really. There's not much meaning to ordering at a McDonald's. On their way to perform a hit for their mob boss Marsellus Wallace, the conversation is funny and memorable, but overall pointless, clearly ill-fitting for what they're about to do. It's not gangster talk, it's what you'd hear from people yapping over the water cooler at work, just delivered by great actors so well that it is entertaining. Then they get to the location and they proceed to be the worst hitmen ever. I'm no expert, if you can believe this. I haven't killed someone before, but I know not to spend extra time at the location walking around and loudly discussing how you should have different guns, and then to take the ones you do get and unload like 8 bullets into a 20-something guy in a linen shirt, and then to almost die to some other guy in the bathroom with a revolver because you didn't check the whole place was clear despite explicitly saying that there could be up to 4 or 5 people and having only seen 3 so far. The truth is, these guys are not cool professional hitmen. They're average Joes given guns and orders. This is basically just a day job in different clothing, a boss without the manager title, complete with pointless chatter and thinking said boss should be giving you different tools. It's a position which allows one to believe they're free from the grind and yet embody it near exactly. I mean, sure, they put on a good intimidation act, one of the best ever put to the screen, but that's exactly the problem. The thing keeping them here like this, keeping them meaningless, is that it's all an act, a performance, and one which is strictly to make this truth less apparent and stroke their egos. To understand why, we have to look at their boss, Marsellus. We won't be going into the Golden Watch section of the movie much here today, but we do get our best details of who he is from how he treats Butch, an aging boxer that he wants to take a dive. And he treats him poorly. He laughs directly at him about his dreams, saying how silly it is that an old guy like him wants to keep going, that he needs to give up in pride and give into control. Take this envelope of money for a dive in the 5th round, and eventually he'll be saying Marsellus was right. He holds that money even after offering a little reminder of the situation, that Butch is not in control, he is being controlled. The point is, Marsellus acts as an arbiter of meaning of sorts, telling people what they can and can't be, a boxer that he needs to retire, and 2 random dudes that they're suddenly hitmen, degradation and elevation alike. He uses power and money to make them fit these roles and rob them of will either way. Think about a blacksmith making a knife. Do they make something in the shape of a knife and then go, oh, wow, turns out I made a knife? Or do they have the conception of one in its purpose in their head beforehand, that they want something to cut, and so they make something with a sharp edge in that form? They craft it to fit that purpose. That's what a tool is, a form for a purpose without a will of its own. And that's what he treats people as. They are people made to fit roles, not roles made to fit people. So why does he do this? Because he's rich and powerful, of course, he can. Well, why is he rich and powerful? That's obvious, it's because he does this, that reinforces his richness and his powerfulness. Well, why does he do that? Well, it's because he's rich and powerful. There is no answer to the question, it only points to itself. We find this in the popular fan theory, that the case Vincent and Jules are sent to retrieve contains Marsellus' soul, because in Old Miss the devil takes the soul from the back of your neck, where Marsellus has a bandage prominently featured. While interviews with the actors have made it very likely unintentional, it probably was just a shaving mistake from Ving Rhames, Tarantino did say that it's whatever you want it to be, and this is what most people want it to be. And I get why, because deep down we all know that rich doesn't mean good or smart, it only means luck. He didn't have to work to get here, he sold his soul to the devil to attain status and power, whether that's literally or figuratively. The point is, it's not merit, but simply time and place joining to make what we call luck, whether that's an industrial boom or a dot-com bubble or rich parents or some combination of all those things. They may look at their previous actions and point to specific aspects to claim merit, and sure, maybe there were some late nights or good calls, but the only true virtue is persistence, more chances for luck. There's never truly enough to justify why it was them and not someone else. It's all just a cover for a majority luck system, a platform to guess with wrongful confidence at what makes success and create this purposefully self-referential cycle. You can only keep looking to effects and never to causes, because there is no cause more than, well, because. This is a pretty terrible thing to recognize, because it kind of makes all action feel pointless, doesn't it? Like, if hard work doesn't guarantee anything, if it just plays the odds and a slacker has as much chance at success as the dedicated student, then why have you actually taken any of the actions you have towards your goal, towards your own money and power? What you've done, it all just becomes rather silly. It makes all those actions towards whatever goal you were seeking worthless. And so this knowledge is quite readily rejected to preserve that previous effort, covered up through a reliance on the very system which created the issue. If they believe in merit, it will mean that, yes, right now they are lesser than their boss, but also that one day, due to their own actions, they might not be. It could have been for something. Instead of leaving them wide open in a field of painful freedom, it directs their actions down a set path, providing the calm that something which exists outside of them, outside of their responsibility, a space of inherent systems of power, a space in that is waiting for them. It is meaning to life independent of subjective and complicated human whims. It is limited, but it is also comfortable. This is a dangerous purpose in life, to support the very thing which robs you of it, to become the cause for that endless cycle. But back to our gangsters directly. We see the next level with them. To simply believe in a crushing system directly is, well, crushing. But to believe that you have some hand in it, some gain from it, even if untrue, well, that belief is enticing. This kind of act is what Jules admits when they're about to perform the hit, where he says,
"Come on, let's get into character."
They want to play that role so damn well that it feels real, to play the part as they wish they could simply be, an allowed taste of the life that they can't have. Think about how they act during this hit compared to the glimpses of their character elsewhere. We see this very prominently with Vincent. Even outside of the job, he wears a suit like this. But as pointed out by this article about the costuming, the shirt isn't crisp and clean like Jules's, but much more easily wrinkled, and it shows. The point is, he wears a suit, but he doesn't wear it well. And with Mia during the iconic twist contest, he tries to deny dancing so much, but then when he does, he shows off carefully practiced moves, and that wins them the trophy. The way he struts tries to intimidate Butch for a stare. It's obvious that Vincent is desperately trying to seem like he isn't, that he wants to be a cool guy, the archetype of nonchalance and effortlessness, charisma against authority, even as he's trying so hard. And so this is the role he decides to play here, hanging back as the silent type, just casually smoking a cigarette even though he's about to commit murder. The lack of care and irony emblematic of the guy he wants to be. Now, Jules, the kind of person who picks out a Bible quote because he thought it was some cool shit to say before killing a man, who wears a more crisp suit and styles facial hair, he wants to be more noticed, to take center stage, and so he does here, out front and commanding attention. I think it's super telling that this intimidation act is so long and drawn out. Making Brett give up his food and drink, quite literally the nourishment to live, what is more emblematic of power than that? That's what a king does to the peasants. Forcing Brett to stumble over his words so Brett sounds dumb and Jules sounds smart, that's not just intimidation, that's simulated superiority. He's doing this for himself. The feeling of knowing that he can't be struck for asking for a sip and then chugging the whole thing for that annoying sound that it proves all of that. Powerlessness everywhere, he grasps at it here. The show is definitely for them because they're killing everyone who witnesses it. Jules and Vincent know each other well, so they know this act isn't all they are, and Marvin can't exactly talk about it because it's illegal, and anyway, well, the whole death thing doesn't help either. Even more proof that Vincent is a terrible hitman. So the only thing left is, I guess, a police report, but you don't know exactly what your name connected to that, just the vague implication that it was some of Marsellus' guys. Maybe there was some direction from him that they should act like that, but if that's the case, wouldn't he have given them shotguns like they wanted? Point is, this is a show for the guys putting it on. They could just come in here and get this done with minimal effort and no one would be the wiser, but just doing it, well, that would make it a bit too obvious that this is basically just Marsellus' dirty laundry that he can't be bothered to do. He will go out on a job. He does so when Butch screws him later, as we see, but he simply doesn't think that this one is worth doing himself, and so he sends his lackeys to do it for him. I mean, part of Vincent's job is literally entertain my beautiful wife for me, a pretty direct statement that Marsellus is off in some other place, maybe even with some other woman, but he still wants to own the one here, to show her off where they look, but don't touch. Nice things are for me, all while not even bothered to do it himself. If these two simply did the work required, they would see how demeaning it is to be under another's boot, and so they act instead. And yet, a key part is also making that boot seem as powerful as possible, since deep down, they know this fact. They do this not only to convince themselves of their own power, but also their bosses to uphold the false system which makes power valuable. The foot massage debate, as in, is a foot massage an intimate act, is similarly pulpy dialogue from the pair. Ultimately pointless, but treated as if it's some philosophical diatribe as they wait to perform this hit to continue discussing it. But the crux of it is that apparently Marsellus threw a man out of a four-story window for giving his wife Mia a foot massage. While Jules says that it's not an intimate act, he still doesn't deny the thing that Vincent is really saying, that he believes Marsellus would and did do something this ruthless, even though it's a comical overreaction. Something even Mia herself states bluntly when Vincent sheepishly asks her about it later.
Marsellus throwing Tony out of a 4-story window seem reasonable?
It's clearly bullshit, but they believe it because they want to. If their boss is that ruthless, then, well, I guess they're kind of that ruthless too, aren't they? They're simultaneously correct in their fear, affirmed that they should seek what he has, and righteous in serving him all at once. They can only be the tyranny of evil men if the men are truly evil, after all. And with that, the cycle is set. They get crushed by the evil, which convinces them the only escape is itself, and so they act in service of it, crushing others and convincing them in turn that the only escape is itself once again. They could stop. Everyone serving him could stop and he'd be nothing, just as human as when he gets run over in a beaten up Honda by Butch. But they don't. The intoxication, the allure to only seem more loyal by another's treachery locks them all into a battle against their own instead of one going upwards. The prisoner's dilemma of day workers and gangsters alike. I really want to dig into how this, which appears to be satisfaction for the servants, isn't though, and we see this best with Vincent. Sure, he gets to play powerful, but the cost is severe limitation, happiness gained only through the lack of awareness. To understand him though, we have to understand what he wants to be. Cool. I'll be as brief as possible and leave my sources in the pinned comment. The main one, an excerpt from the book Cool Rules, Anatomy of an Attitude by Pounton and Robbins, seeks to answer a contradiction which was posed by earlier papers of their era, one fitting to our protagonists. How does America have a work week totally defined by the era of Reagan, but a weekend defined by the 60s he went against, conservative values with liberal pleasures, embodied all at the same time by its citizens? The authors posit a simple word for a complex answer: cool. The word has been around for a while, but matters most post-World War II. The world had just been shown it had the power to destroy itself at any moment, but the people were encouraged to work hard now for a better future. Career and family were virtues touted, but the boredom of them could be endlessly felt. American democracy needed to be spread throughout the world, but witch trials for communists were being held at home, not a very freedom-loving thing. In short, society felt more hypocritical than ever, less worthy of the belief and effort that they were asking for, leading many to search for something more authentic by entering and overtaking a counterculture formed in the quiet rebellion of America's oppressed black citizens who had been witness to this contradiction for years, restricted in the land of the free. Take the story of Babe Gonzalez, the self-proclaimed creator of the bebop language. Convinced by his principal and mother to work hard and get a real job, he graduated with straight A's, only each time to be passed over for every good job by some guy who got nothing but D's. Some guy who just happened to be white. With no reward for his effort, he went a different route instead, pursuing music in an independent fashion without talent brokers or managers, casting off the prospect of any mainstream success to stay totally free. Sometimes with his own group, sometimes a composer or guest musician. At one point he even had a club in New York, Bab's Insane Asylum, but when the rent ran up he decided to close, sealing the deal by throwing the owner's piano out of the window. A behind-the-scenes figure connected to big names like Charlie Parker and Dizzy Gillespie, he mostly remained in his own cult following, remembered as someone whose influence reached the mainstream but never attached to his own name. Clearly it's not the way you dream it up, but it was the way available for it to truly be his mark, and not just an extension of someone else's or an allowance from above, not catering to what did him wrong to begin with. Now, for many who were stuck with lesser chances though, this took the form of an ironic detachment, an aloof nature as if they cared about nothing in the face of authority because of what such a thing did. It made that authority weaker. To be unbothered by hate made it mundane, unentertaining, and powerless. And to act as if this difference from society was something you'd be embracing anyway, reclaimed it as your own. To say, I make a virtue of my exclusion. This was characterized by more instant pleasure, acknowledgement that if the world was going to treat you like shit and might end tomorrow, you may as well take all the pleasure you can get right now, focus on you over them. This is how the cool attitude began. A silent rebellion against authority, fighting force with a yeah, whatever. But this detachment didn't prevent a culture of its own from forming. This focus on the self didn't isolate them because they shared in it and what it meant. An oppressor who didn't know what the attitude was truly for would pass it by, but someone else in the know, someone else awake to it, could share something with you using no words at all, only a casual nod, for example. It was communicated in musicians the mainstream didn't know and activities they would scoff at, purposefully being everything that popular wasn't, to distance itself from what was behind that popularity. The hypocrisy of a nation which said sex was always bad, but which knew the president was doing it, which said family was all, but let fathers use their fists. This returns us to how society at large came to overtake these subcultures. As these hypocrisies became even more apparent, more people turned to the counterculture, and more people meant more eyes meant money could be made, and marketing caught on. Feel disillusioned with the world? Here's the album for you. Feeling despair at politics? Wear this to show that. Because cool was communicated without words, but with a look, a style, it was able to be commodified in items, packaged and sold to those outside of the know so they could appear within it, slowly becoming more and more mainstream. This is where the authors turned to Andy Warhol, a man who got the chance to draw a picture to be sent to the moon and went with, well, what he called his signature. One of the coolest opportunities in this world, actually quite literally outside of it, and he uses it for a joke. It's a great example of what he, and the real issue the moment he was a part of, was all about. Irony. His art, Campbell's soup cans and Marilyn Monroe's face repeated in different colors, it poked fun at high art by both being it and not being it all at once, within the mainstream and yet hating it at the same time. You could look at it and see a commentary on consumerism, or you could see a joke about people who took it seriously. A fountain-esque raised by the artist's act of choice, or the snickers about such a statement from 3 rows back. The heavy irony allowed it to say everything, appeal to everyone, and as such not really mean anything at all. It showed that fame as bullshit is true. The first time so many people thought, I think I could have made that too, for better or for worse. Now the whole process was a commodity, an easy one. 15 minutes of fame, making everyone a star, but only because stars were worthless. Walk of Fame, anyone? That cool detachment was now accessible and totally marketable as both a yes and a no. As a generation raised in this grew into power in the late 80s and 90s, cool was now a commodity, found in owning the right brand, stuffing the pockets of the rich assholes the aesthetic was designed to rebel against. The silence was still there, but now instead of communicating a careful message, it was inaction, complacency. A look, not a meaning. And the rest, well, you've lived the rest. Things became either cool or uncool binarily, culminating in a fear of being wrong and embarrassed, an era where it was safer not to really enjoy anything deeply because that would be pretty cringe, bro. Cool was no longer removing limits in the face of limitation, but purposefully accepting them to fit within the authority. There seems to be some push against that we're back into an era of trying as cool again, but it's an open book in the present. Is cool going to be the logo, or the people wearing them? So this brings us to how we can understand Vincent. Late stage cool, the idea without the substance. Basically, for all of his acting, he is deeply uncool and bothered. After performing the hit, Vincent's lack of firearm safety, well, I'll let Johnny T tell you himself.
Well, you gotta have an opinion. Stop. Oh man, I shot Marvin in the face. What?
This means that they and the car need to get off the streets and get cleaned quickly. Marsellus calls in the Wolf, a man who makes problems go away, and he makes swift work of getting it all handled before the wife of their host, this random guy who's terrible at acting that they cast for some reason, comes home and blows up the situation. With the clock running out and Vincent having orders to fulfill, he asks the Wolf, the man who's giving up his morning to keep them from prison time right now, for a please before he cleans up the mess he himself made by being an idiot. He is promptly put in his place for it. The interaction speaks to the exact kind of cool that he is. A man who refuses to be ordered around on principle, for no cause but simply because, a look with no meaning. A man who will do it here when he's clearly in the wrong, while being Marsellus' errand boy only a few hours later without a single peep about please. The lighter-flicking, cigarette-rolling, steak-ordering, and suit-wearing idea that cool is anti-establishment without actually knowing when, where, and why. That is Vincent. And this is where Mia becomes the perfect contrast and test. Arriving at the restaurant, Vincent sticks to his guns, pleading that they simply go somewhere where he can order a steak, the kind of place that men go to. Instead, she sticks with the last place he wants to be seen in Jack Rabbit Slim's, the epitome of uncool. You sit in 1950s cars while the stars of the time half act, half wait on you, complete with pun titles for every item on the menu. It's the most gimmicky of all gimmicks, a kind of place that reeks of unabashed enjoyment. Cringe, you could say. It's also a place Vincent should enjoy. Mia has average knowledge about this place. She could tell you who some of the waiters are supposed to be with good guesses, like blonde and dressed probably means Marilyn Monroe. But Vincent, he can correct her with a look of almost disgust and say that's clearly Mamie Van Doren before noticing that Jane Mansfield is absent tonight. He has encyclopedic knowledge of the names. He loves nothing more than his own classic car, a 1964 Chevy Malibu, and yet he absolutely hates being here where all of that stuff is. Because he's making himself hate it. Because cool demands not liking anything obviously. Instead of just embracing the things that make him happy, he jumps through hoop after hoop after hoop to uphold that he is and someone else isn't, that he is better because they are worse. It's silly, but the summary is in how he orders. With a whole menu to pick from, he goes right to the steak and orders the first thing he sees. Limitation. Being cool is not making him unbothered and free, but it's limiting him to simulate those things. And this is where we actually get to Mia herself, his pretty direct foil. For every second that he is deeply concerned about crafting an image, she's living herself into the most iconic ever. She is the wife of an LA mob boss. She could pick any fancy restaurant in the entire city to eat at with fantastic food from chefs slaving over their craft. And instead she picks Jack Rabbit Slim's, where a probably disgruntled former culinary student is serving her a burger that doesn't even really look that good. But this is where she wants to be because she enjoys it. A former actress who was probably inspired by her parents' favorite movies, the ones from this restaurant's era. Now, that's former because her one shot, a pilot called Fox Force 5, quickly failed because, well, it sounds goddamn horrendous. What she describes is a tacky, cliche, poorly written show which even the best acting would just be putting lipstick on a pig. I think this is a super purposeful detail to show that no matter how hard she tried, this would have failed. Down to time and place, to luck, she simply wasn't chosen, sullied by someone else's poor work. Her dream, her importance and purpose was right there and then gone. And yet, the failed actress, by no fault of her own, is picking a place all about the silver screen. While everyone else ignores their powerlessness, lets it keep them from the things they truly enjoy because of that reminder, she doesn't, still embracing them as her own. She has all the money in the world to get away from this, distract herself and ignore her failures, and yet she dives right into them. She's truly authentic, the only one in this series of characters truly happy by enjoying things for themselves, not for their outcome or their appearance. This is everywhere in her personality. Take the line I quote the most from this entire movie.
Why do we feel it's necessary to yak about bullshit in order to be comfortable? And you can just shut the fuck up for a minute, comfortably share silence. That's when you know you found somebody really special.
It's a direct opposition to, well, most of the dialogue in this movie. Those pointless conversations Jules and Vincent have, which are funny but which have no real substance to them. The point of them is to keep it lively and distracting, to keep boss's chores from feeling like boss's chores, and, as we said, akin to water cooler conversation at any office. It's similar to acting cool, a form of limitation via action. By doing one thing carefully and precisely, you avoid having to do every other thing. By always talking, you avoid thinking. And when you avoid thinking, you avoid the depth that can hurt you. Mia goes against this, a person in the space of archetypes. In those moments where she just lets the silence exist and sits and stares at Vincent, that's where their chemistry grows, as each is forced into their head to truly consider the situation. how she is clearly challenging him to get closer with the cooties talk, how he is desperately trying not to meet her high line this whole time and see that hint too, how she holds the cherry on her lips. It's that tension which forces consideration, which deepens a potential relationship by making a challenge to be overcome, time and energy and effort to make the connection more valuable for what it cost, the anxiety and tension released boosting every moment afterwards. None of this happens if the focus is always on yakking about bullshit, and Vincent yaks because he's scared, rightfully so to be fair, of what will happen if he falls in love with this genuine person. The dance then is the final push in denying this, by quite literally removing the ability for words and forcing action, locking them into a silence of their own even as music plays in this crowded place. And not just that, it takes him out of his cool guy persona and makes him actually put in effort to win this contest, since he's meant to make his boss's wife happy, and letting the moves wouldn't quite do that. Well, he starts dancing carefully, clearly practiced. She goes more wild and spur of the moment, dragging him into paired moves which make him do a bit of the same, be not cool, but join her in more authentic movements, pulling him closer to her at the exact same time. And dragging him up to that stage, the walls are down at the exact same time, so the challenge is thrown and undeniable. It's maybe the most two birds with one stone moment in all of cinema, a literal push and pull across the dance floor that Vincent loses to his betterment. The next scene is them dancing joyously into Mia's house, trophy in hand. And to top it all off, as a bit of proof, they share a silence after he hugs her, unsure what to call it. For the first time ever, the man is living true and free, unburdened by the idea of cool and structures of power he's both victim to and desirer of. And in another stroke of silly genius, a terrible line shows this best.
I'm gonna take a piss.
It's so uncool and unnecessary that even Mia comments on it, something such an appearance-focused man would only say if he were entirely swept up in this moment. But the point of power is that it's always there, always in his head from all the acting and all the stories, the background of everything one does under it. When he looks at Mia in that moment where kind of the genuine nature has been recognized after his awkward statement, he doesn't just see her. He sees her, Marsellus' wife, in all the connotations that has, like being thrown out of a 4-story window for touching her. And so when Vincent gets a moment alone in the bathroom, it all sets back in, and he has to actively remove himself from this in-the-moment genuine space by literally planning his next actions. How fast he's going to drink his drink, the words he'll say goodbye with, and even what he'll do when he gets home. To not incur the wrath of his boss, he has to live by a script. To not enjoy real life, but what's allowed of life instead. To convince himself that this is right and he's happy, as he's always done. Like, it's pretty purposeful that we do not see Mia and Marsellus share a single word the entire movie, because it doesn't feel like they would have any chemistry at all if they did. The feeling I get is that the relationship simply is. But the feeling I know is that her and Vincent steal the attention of the entire audience, make this whole movie, that once the tension breaks, it's the most joy we see from any characters in this whole goddamn movie. Their story would be a great one we'll never see. As Vincent recognizes,
This is a moral test of whether or not you can maintain loyalty.
a night to make him prove and accept the relationship of master and servant through the greatest temptation not to yet. That's the point. To not just make everyone stop being authentic, able to possibly find value outside of you, but then to make it so far-reaching it truly does become impossible by all the loyalty and threat behind it. Survival itself becomes dancing carefully instead of freely, ordering a steak instead of everything else. This is where we finally get back to Jules, and how his response to seeing the truth goes a little bit further than Mia's. To not just use the system for himself, but to actually go against it. As we said, their terrible hit meaning leaves a guy in the bathroom with a revolver who jumps out once they've appeared to empty their guns and unloads, somehow missing every single shot. Vincent goes back to normal after this, because his mentality demands not questions but answers, to believe everything is figured already. To him, it's a freak occurrence and nothing more than that. But to Jules, it's a life-changing moment. He should be dead, and yet here he is, alive and well. The all-important question follows: why? Is he alive for some greater reason? Is this a special chance that he had been wasting? He takes the moment instead as divine intervention, God keeping him alive for some reason yet to be known. To be fair, it is chance. An unskilled panic gunman, who somehow happens to look a lot like Jerry Seinfeld, happened to miss his shots, so the outcome makes sense. Even if it wouldn't always happen, it's very probable. But it's also not untrue that it could be for a reason if we consider the future. I mean, the process of understanding the world is observation, is it not? We take an action, we wait for the results, and then we judge if we want to do the action again. So it also isn't correct to simply dismiss this, but rather it must be judged with what comes after, what he makes of a possible gift. And the best way for that to happen is to believe it is meant to, that there is some why, even if it's not known. After all, evil doesn't even have a why, no cause for its effect, so good simply asking for one puts it a step ahead. And all one need do is ask and the world opens. Because whoever said the thing you're doing right now is truly the best one for you? It could be good, but something could always be better, and it's never known unless one looks, even if it just confirms what currently is. It's especially true here because the point of their jobs right now is expressly that the men are terrible at the jobs, and the jobs are terrible for the men, a false system of power made true by their belief it's right, and the giving up of their own will to someone else's decision. In that one simple question, Jules regains that all-important will, and it makes him immensely better than Vincent, because Jules becomes exactly what Vincent fakes to be, cool as hell. Due to Vincent, well, shooting Marvin in the face, their suits are ruined and the duo gets some dorky clothes from that terrible actor they used for Jimmy for some reason. Going into a diner to grab some breakfast, the opening of the movie where two small-time robbers, Ringo and Yolanda, discuss robbing the place comes back into the play as their plan begins. What ensues is, in all likelihood, the best individual scene in a movie, full of an immense level of tension, meaning, and unforgettable performances. Managers have pistols pushed to their heads as Ringo starts to steal wallets, and Yolanda does crowd control, jumping back and forth just like their spontaneous and reckless conversation, meaning anything could happen, especially in a movie which plays with timeline expectations to kill Vincent halfway through before then jumping back. Jules is not safe by any means in this moment. And in the midst of it, entirely unbothered and only slowly readying his gun, there he is. With Vincent off-screen in the bathroom, he rests arm on the bench seat, entirely casually. No movement he makes is unnatural, flowing like water to bait Ringo in with the case and then hold him hostage instead, entirely flipping the arrangement and developing a perfect monologue. It's a man as confidence itself. And doing it all while wearing the least cool outfit anyone ever has. But that fact entirely fades out, forgotten under his actions inside of the outfit instead. The man and not the logo. That's what shows actual cool to me the best, that he exudes that feeling so much that you can entirely forget what he's wearing, and the camera tries to mirror that by zooming in more and more to show only the face, the focus on the man, and not the appearance. He can make you, and this movie can direct you to be as unbothered by it as he is. And we have to remember that this is a difficult situation to navigate despite his calmness, even more so as he decides to try and do it without killing, despite the clear opportunity he had to do so. It requires him to be on the spot, to understand here and now the relationship these two share and how to manage it, getting Ringo to speak to her instead of doing it himself, calming her biggest anxiety of his safety like he'd done this hundreds of times before. He can only navigate this situation so well exactly because he's unbothered. I mean, just think about it. That is what he's not thinking about. How this will look, or how much money he's going to lose, or if he'll even make it out since his life is already a gift. His mind is totally clear, able to be actually present, to be genuine in this moment, instead of lost in the others. That's the benefit this philosophy gives him, a truly unbothered nature, free to explore all the possibilities rather than just some, like Vincent, who immediately goes to escalate the situation when he returns, saying he'll shoot Ringo on principle, the absolute worst thing he could state, when the clearly unstable Yolanda, who only relies on Ringo, has a gun trained on Jules. This is what he gains in not caring so much about one thing. He gets everything else, the ability to respond to situations cool and well. That's how being genuine improves one. It quite simply makes more possible in the mental space it frees. It's the same as deciding that the bullets missing meant something. You just have to be open to doing so, and it becomes so. This reaches an odd paradox, though. We're saying that everything being meaningless is what allows things to be meaningful, even as we really said things like that being a star makes no one so. So, isn't this just stating that nothing means anything important? Well, it is, but for the better. The problem with everyone being a star is that a star is not anyone, but an idea of a person, of someone who holds fame regardless of their other qualities. Like cool, it's a standard to be met, a label to be placed upon an individual. If something like that is accessible to everyone, it does become meaningless. However, in contrast, let's look at when Jules has his moment of clarity, when he's eating a blueberry muffin in this inconspicuous diner. It's innocuous, pointless. Anyone could do it. I mean, this moment is something we experience basically every single day, and it doesn't mean a thing. But if he accepts that nothing he thought really meant something, like all those systems men like Marsellus create and perpetuate, like the idea of cool he followed, then that suddenly makes this moment more in comparison, raised to a baseline far above simple mundanity by everything else going down to it too. Yes, they all mean nothing, but if he is able to create meaning, then that means that this moment, anything, can be the most meaningful thing in his life. A life-changing moment doesn't need to be almost dying, a rare, dangerous occurrence of a whole revolver missing, but instead it could just be here and now. A muffin in this diner is much easier than a bullet to the face. The point is that if everything is meaningless, then we don't have to try as hard as we may have been before. Turns out what we were looking for was always here, we just had to be open to it. From absolute powerlessness, absolute power and total ease has arisen. The only condition is that one first accepts their freedom, the despair of not having a guide, but having to decide all of their actions by themselves, for themselves. That one embraces the ability to be wrong according to standards, but right all the time according to them. This is what freedom is, and all is built from it. But maybe the most important thing this applies to is his Bible verse, one which adds a lot of creative liberty to the original and is really just a reference to a nearly identical line in Chiba the Bodyguard, a film Tarantino likes. As Jules says, it wasn't something he really put stock in. He just thought it was
some cold-blooded shit to say to a motherfucker before I pop the cap in his ass.
That is, he recognizes how it meant nothing but show before. Nothing but show as he, a man acting for an evil one, ended quite a lot of lives. A constantly reinforced system of limited, false purpose. But he begins to place meaning in it, something essentially made up when he says to Ringo, "Truth is, you are the weak, and I am the tyranny of evil men."
I'm trying real hard to be the shepherd.
It both explains everything which has happened so far. That he wasn't even one of the characters in this verse, but simply the will of the worst one, and then speaks to how it doesn't impact what happens next, so long as he chooses not to let it. That at any point he can take what was evil and make it good with his will, the base freedom required for change. So long as a muffin can be meaningful, then an evil man can become a good one. No matter one's mistakes, they can always find this better path so long as they commit to living it, and as such passing it on as Jules does. Because Ringo and Yolanda only exist in this one scene, but there's something we can instantly get about them in their relationship. They are awful people who are very much in love. Yolanda is erratic, impressionable, and anxious in how she jumps around and changes personas, and Ringo is the calming factor which keeps them together. The important thing isn't really what they're doing, but that they are doing it as a pair. There's something genuine about them. using such lame pet names in the middle of a robbery that shows that they've already accepted some degree of not needing a greater appearance, a hint, a spark to catch fire. They're deadly thieves who have ruined people's livelihoods for their own gain, but a gain which is in response to not wanting to fall into the crushing grind of daily lives, something they directly acknowledge in denying day work as an opportunity almost instantly when it's explored. They share in those same conditions which Jules once experienced, a similarity, a human condition rather than a human nature. They are united in one fundamental search for freedom which begots all else. And so it's recognized by Jules that if he desires freedom, they must also have theirs so that those systems shrink, so that we are not stealing freedom from each other. The tyranny of evil men must be removed, reduced in its fellowship so that genuine, free lives can follow and stop working against each other. For one to truly be free, all others must be free. Thus, he acts upon this commonality and responsibility by saving them. And as mentioned, he could have made this situation a lot easier if he just killed them. He isn't lying about trying real hard, despite how effortless it might seem. He could have shot them, saved all that time and stress, saved thousands of dollars that he allowed them to take for his purchase for buying the safety of their lives from them. Because they still need money to survive, so if anything he tells them is going to stick, they need it. They need freedom from that system for a moment to be unlimited and consider what he leaves them with in full. He saves them because there is something genuine in here, their love. To kill them and end that, all it does is remove the potential for love in this world, to revoke the possibilities which would have emerged when they became free. Killing them would be giving up on Jules' duty to himself, and so he doesn't. He leaves them with exactly what he got that morning, an obviously life-changing moment in the knowledge that it doesn't have to be so. As those bullets missed him, he allows his to never be fired, yet make it known that they could have, and then they are forced to consider, why? Why did he let them live? With that freedom of the money he gives them, the lesson he imparted, and the genuine seeming love they share, he sets two people out in the world to reform themselves and pass on the doctrine, to live genuinely and set a non-template template for all people, to simply live as you so that everyone may live as them. The first step to fixing some of these problems is first to be free, so that we may be open to and ready for the hard work which follows when those possibilities open. So take the words of someone who, well, you'll learn a little bit more about me if you check out that video there, some weirdo interpreting Tarantino through history and Sartre. I think I was just pretty authentic, so I think you can be too. In fact, you should be, for me and for you. Be dorky, dance silly, don't care about caring, because uncool is pretty fucking cool. So a quick little outro for this one, because I realized there was some stuff I didn't actually specifically state anywhere in the video. It doesn't actually change the video, it's just stuff that is probably like pertinent information to pass on for things you might want to look into further yourself based on what you've heard in this video. The most notable is that this is basically Pulp Fiction meets Existentialism is a Humanism. This whole video is essentially framing the movie within that philosophical essay, the old Jean-Paul Sartre. So there's an outline in the pinned comment that actually goes through and expands on that piece a little bit, while also then in certain sections explaining kind of where Pulp Fiction fits it. If you just want to kind of see the source material more plainly, that's all linked down there. The text that you can get yourself, as well as that outline, the sources for the history in this video. All of that stuff is available in the pinned comment as always, and I always encourage people to go and check it out, because I am only ever going to be aggregating and passing on information when it comes to history and topics I am not experts in. I am trusting myself more and more to do that with philosophy, which is why I didn't think I need to specifically state it here, because I've now dived into that stuff a lot. But with the history, I think it's much more important to point out that like going and reading those sources can be important, because I am not going to know everything, and you will get much more depth on important things out of those than you will directly out of me. It's both the beauty and the curse of YouTube video essays, is that as generalists, we can share a lot of important information and cover great ideas, but being a generalist necessitates that sometimes you're going to miss a few things. Is there anything else that I had for that? I did not write anything down. I'm just doing this spur of the moment. I guess the other important thing that I should get better at mentioning throughout the video, because the only people listening this late are the people who always do, is that I have a Patreon and memberships where these videos go up early and ad-free. The next one will be up right now already, 2 weeks early, about hate and hate as a shield and so on. So supporters there, different tiers, get their names listed in different order in the credits, as well as videos ad-free and early. I think those are the important things I wanted to mention. So I don't really have anything else to put here. I'm trying to be less serious all the time, which is why there was like almost a funny outro there, but I can't not be genuine and say a big thank you to all the supporters, as well as everyone who somehow gets this far into videos that this is literally just me rambling. Why are you listening to this? But I appreciate it. It means a lot. Yeah, I don't know. It's just a really special, awesome thing that I can talk about this movie. I have a whole cut intro for this. That was just me talking about how this movie is unfortunately meaningful to me because it's just something that me and my dad finally shared in the pandemic. Like once I was old enough to kind of like engage with the media that he liked and put a critical eye on it and like, I don't know, use it as like a proof that I enjoy the same things and that we have something to talk about and just like quote at each other, but also that I can then take it and expand on it. And I feel like that's like a pride thing in a way that someone can take pride in me for being able to do because they raised that kind of person. And I had to cut it because it just wasn't as interesting as a short intro. It was too long. Maybe I'll also put that on Patreon, where people can read my original, probably decent but not great intro to this video about how it's supposed to be even more meaningful to me. Anyway, I already started saying goodbye like a minute ago. Thank you, as always, for way too much of your time. And I'll just say, I hope I'll see you again soon.